Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Summers, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate and share your passion for mining, like in Utah. It provides families sustaining wages along with the pride of supplying our nation with our resources, just like in my district in northern Minnesota. And I also want to thank you for mentioning my bill, the Permitting for Mining Needs Act. In Section 3, it limits environmental assessments and environmental impact statements to 1 and 2 years respectively. Can you discuss how limiting these timeframes will expedite the permitting process and also clarify that even with a time limit, we can ensure all environmental safeguards?
Thank you, Congressman. As has been discussed, even with the previous panel, a lot of the problems that we run into with federal permitting is the fact that these processes can be dragged out for years and years and years, and there's not strict timelines that are established in federal law that would help to expedite these processes. And again, if you look at foreign countries like, as I mentioned, Canada, Australia, these are countries that have very similar environmental safeguards that we do. And the mining industry wants to develop the mineral assets of this country in an environmentally sensitive way. That being said, you can have a rational time frame that allows for adequate environmental review without stretching these things out to 7 to 10 years and beyond.
Well, Mr. Summers, I would say that I've heard you and a couple other folks say that 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years for mining. I'll let you know that in the Duluth complex in northern Minnesota, the biggest copper nickel find in the world, which Joe Biden just banned mining in that district. But there's a company in its 20th year of permitting, and then there's another one within 9 years of permitting process. And it's just unfortunate, especially if we want to hold ourselves to the highest environmental and labor standards we mine in America. Thank you very much. Mr. Holloman, thank you for joining us today. Your testimony, like Mr. Summers, discussed how our foreign rivals control the international minerals market. It also briefly discusses the Inflation Reduction Act, which we were told was meant to reduce inflation. But according to your testimony, it allows metals mined in Indonesia, for example, and processed in China to qualify for IRA funding. Is this true, and can you expand on how these IRA funds also boost Chinese manufacturing?
Thank you, Congressman. That's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. It was a shock to me. I just came back from Korea, where I was talking to some of the big FTA battery companies, and they were discussing the IRA and the domestic content requirements. Now, as far as I know, these domestic content requirements are not settled. It is still being discussed. There's a negotiation. But the Korean battery makers were interested in doing business in America, in building processing in America, in partnering with groups like us. And yet they were conflicted because they were being told by US OEMs that, you know what, you already have processing of Chinese-owned Indonesian metal that goes to a 49% Korean-owned processing plant in China, and that will qualify. All we have to do is send it in an intermediate product and then roll it into a battery in America, and that's going to qualify. And this is something that I think needs to be known, that is not right. I've spoken to people right and left that say, no, that's not the intent of the law.
What you just described, excuse me, but what you just described is American taxpayer money going overseas to foreign, in some cases adversarial nations, to mine those critical minerals.
It will be if we're giving a $7,500 taxpayer rebate for an electric vehicle that has its metals mined and processed by the Chinese. So that absolutely will happen. It hasn't happened yet because we don't have that implementation, but it's coming soon, and we need to get ahead of it. It's something I think it's important for you all to know, that cannot be the domestic content requirement. We need it to be processed and mined in the USA. We can do a lot of it here, or the free trade agreement countries as well, but let's try to get as much as we can, especially nickel and cobalt, here.
Agree. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I yield back.